Hi guys, Josh here, aka Beards and Books. Today I am doing a comic book recommendation video on TV and movie tie-ins. I hope you enjoy. As I mentioned guys, this is going to be a TV and movie tie-in comic book video. The comics don't necessarily follow on from TV series or movies, but they are all linked to TV series or movies. I hope you enjoy. Just an FYI, I did also do a comic book recommendation video for gaming. If you're a gaming fan, I will leave a link in one of these fabulous corners. Please check it out. So the first comic book I want to talk to you about is one of my favourites that I'm going to show you. The TV series that I'm going to talk about is also one of my favourites, and that is Supernatural. If you haven't heard of Supernatural, I don't know what you are doing with life. Supernatural is one of the longest running TV series there is. It's an American CW TV series and it is incredible. I'm obsessed with all things Supernatural. I am Team Dean every day of the week. Supernatural follows the story of Sam and Dean Winchester, who are monster hunters effectively. They save the world and they don't get the treatment they should. As you can tell by the title of this, Supernatural Origins, this story follows their dad, John Winchester, when they are both young, as you can see from the front cover, if I can get good light in. This is a great comic. For any Supernatural fans, the Supernatural comics are must-reads. Now, I will say, these can be quite rare and hard to find. I got lucky with these. I found them when they first came out, so they weren't too expensive. I've looked them up since, and the price has gone up. So it's definitely worth thinking about if you can get a reasonable deal on them. The comic books are brilliant. I will show you some of the art if I can find a page that isn't too gruesome. So it has quite an original artistic style. It's not your standard comic book style, but it's done really, really well. A must read for any Supernatural fan. Next one I'm only going to talk about briefly because I spoke about it in a couple of videos. The Game of Thrones graphic novel series are brilliant. There are 4 of them out so far, with I believe the 5th one coming at some point soon. I don't know if there's a release date for it. I have touched on these in multiple videos before. I will leave links above, but just so you get a bit of an idea. The art style is really good on these. They're really colourful, really easy to read, and it's Game of Thrones, so simple as that. Next up, Shaun of the Dead. I loved the Cornetto trilogy, which Shaun of the Dead was the first part of. Shaun of the Dead is a British-based zombie comedy. It's kind of a play on Dawn of the Dead. It's just the comedy version, essentially. This comic's brilliant. It's great. It's just as funny as the film. It's zombie-based, but it's character-driven. We follow the main character, Shaun, as he tries to save his best friend, his girlfriend, his mum, from a zombie outbreak. As I said, this is the movie tie-in, so it does follow the movie really well. I'll just show you some of the art style. As mentioned, it follows the movie really well. It's a great comic. It's a really quick read, but if you're like me and you're a fan of Shaun of the Dead, anything zombie related or comedy, pick it up. Next up, Star Trek Volume 1. I'm more of a Star Wars man. I'm just going to throw that out there, but I do enjoy me a bit of Star Trek. Star Trek Volume 1 is the movie tie-in for the new set of Star Wars films that have come out. It's done very well. It follows the movie, but there are additions and there are sidetracks of the story. So if you've seen the film, it's still one you can read and take something new out of. The art style is brilliant, very colourful. It's Star Trek, so if you like Star Trek, I don't need to sell this to you. If you don't like Star Trek, don't read it. Pick up one of the other ones I've spoke about. But this is really good. As always, a bit of glimpse of the artwork so you can see if it's something for you or not. Must read. Aliens. I'm a big horror fan. I love the Alien franchise, really enjoy the Alien series. This one, Alien Stronghold, as you can tell because the alien is holding a gun, is one where the aliens have been captured by humans and they've tried to train them into, super soldier weapons, which is it's stupid. Training aliens, do you know what I mean? It's a really good comic. It's quite an old one now, so I'm not sure how easy or difficult it would be to pick up, but it's a really good comic for anyone that is a fan of the Alien series or horror series in general. Quick glimpse of the artwork. So the artwork for me is quite similar to an old Marvel. It reminds me a lot of the Fantastic Four sort of drawn style. It's really good. Definite read for any horror fans. I hope you enjoy. Next one I'm going to touch on really quickly because that front cover gives absolutely nothing away is Heroes. The Heroes TV series had a brilliant first season and then it completely flopped after that. The graphic novel follows the first season, but with additions. The characters are the same, but their stories are done slightly differently with more added on. The art style is really good. It's really unique. It's a really in-your-face and punchy comic book style. If you're a Heroes fan, like me, definitely take a look. If you're not a Heroes fan or you haven't come across Heroes, I would describe Heroes as kind of like the X-Men, but in everyday world. So it's everyday people that find out they have superpowers, which, you know, varying degrees of superpowers. Some that can't die, some that can fly, some that can take other people's powers, and how they interlope in the world and how they evolve and become that next stage of evolution, or at least what some of them believe they should be. Godzilla. I'm not going to talk too much about Godzilla. Everyone knows the story of Godzilla. Godzilla Awakening, I believe, is the prequel to the latest Godzilla film that came out, which is kind of a retelling, so we'll just call it a prequel. It's a really good story. It is a very Japanese comic, which I personally really enjoy. Obviously, Godzilla being originally Japanese, at least I believe it's Japanese, don't quote me. It's well written. It's a monster story, so you know what you're getting straight away. I'll show you a bit of the artwork so you know whether it's something you'd like or not. So as I mentioned, it's a monster comic book. You know what you're getting. It's monster on monster, and then it's how the rest of the world sort of copes in between. The last two I'm going to talk about are both by Robert Kirkman, who is brilliant in the world of comics. So the first one I want to talk to you about is the Outcast comic book series. So this is a really interesting one. I haven't watched too much of the TV series as of yet. I'm going to wait for it to finish and just binge it. But the Outcast series follows people that are possessed by the devil and forms of the devil, is my understanding of it. The main person who is known as the Outcast is someone with the power to fight those and to push the demons out, essentially. You know, if you're a Supernatural fan, Outcast is something that I'd recommend you take a look at. The artwork's brilliant. The series is ongoing, similar to The Walking Dead, which I'll touch on in a minute. It is an ongoing series, but don't let that put you off, as they are quite regular. I think it's every 3 months or so, roughly, that the next book comes out. So the comic book style is quite, I don't want to say a standard comic book style, but the artwork is nothing necessarily different from the norm, but it's done really well. The story is well written, it's very interesting. The main character, who is called the Outcast, is an interesting character because he's not someone that necessarily wants to help save the world, which is how I prefer it. When you get the characters that will gung-ho, I find them a bit less believable, so this one is done really well. So the last series I want to talk to you about, and the longest running series out of any that I've spoke about, is The Walking Dead. I believe The Walking Dead is on its 27th or 28th edition at the moment. It's a very long series. I think it might be coming to an end, but it hasn't yet. So The Walking Dead TV series is very well known. It originally started as a comic book series, which you can probably tell. So the series is about one man who wakes up from a coma to find out that the world has been overrun by zombies. And it's then his story of how he initially tries to find his family, and then him and a group of survivors try and survive in the new zombie ravaged world. Now the TV show, I'm not going to lie, I don't watch anymore. I think it's dropped off. It's not what it once was. And that, I do believe, is largely because it stopped following the comic books. So this comic book, All Out War, is when the main series bad guy Negan initially comes in. Now, this is the point where I thought the TV show would really take off. But if anything, it's the point where I realised that it really had dropped. But we won't talk about the TV show. The comic books themselves are really, really good, in all honesty. I definitely say, up until All Out War, they're brilliant. They're probably the best comics out of all of the ones that I've mentioned by some distance. The downside, and I will be fully honest with you, is after All Out War, I'd say 2 or 3 after, the story does start to drop. There are bad guys and there are things that happen that just don't make sense. They feel forced and it feel like they were rushed in to get them in for the sake of it, not necessarily for the benefit of the story. So if you're going to read The Walking Dead, I would just say, full caveat, whilst I think the series is brilliant and I will still continue to buy and read them, it does drop off slightly around 22, 23, we'll say. But 22, 23 comics of this size is still quite a lot. And for all we know, the next couple could pick the story right back up. I have a feeling it's gearing up to end. It just gives me that vibe. I don't know that for sure, but that is how I think it's going to go. I really hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. As I said, this is my recommendations for TV and movie fans, maybe tie-ins, just something you can get alongside books and films. I'm a big comic book fan, and I think anyone should at least try and experience one comic in their life. It might be a new favourite thing. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It helps a new booktuber out a lot. If you've got any comments or recommendations for future videos of this style, please let me know. If not, I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.